Welcome in. This is the Sports Game Podcast with Paul Catalina on the brand new 365 Sports Extras. Please like and subscribe. Share this with your friends. It's the lifeblood of what we do. It is Monday. That means we're playing Sports Not Sports with one of our friends, Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio on TuneIn, joins us now. Ari, this game I told you about, I'm going to ask you questions that are in your wheelhouse, in your professional wheelhouse. We'll talk a lot of Big 12. I do have one question in the non-sports category that's technically sports, but it is not Big 12 related, but it is very much related to you, a Chicagoan. Awesome. Yes. So I do have some Chicago questions in here because I do want people to learn about the Chicago of you who may not know you. Because even though the entirety of our friendship, you have lived in Texas, you are still one of the most Chicago-y people that I know. It is not. My wife's the same way. You guys are like almost. They're very similar in that she's from Chicago, went to Kansas. You're from Chicago, went to Kansas. Now she lived in Kansas City before she went to Kansas, but both Chicagoans, both Jayhawks. So I kind of know how you think a little bit. Now, more so than I did, and I've known you longer than I've known her. But now True. I have a unique perspective on you. So let's get right into it. We're going to start with sports, and then we're going to go to not sports and take as much time as you feel comfortable answering the questions, because the goal is to get people to know you in a deeper way than just the Big 12 sports guy. I think often, and this is a pet peeve in my life, when people find out that we have different interests, they're shocked. Does that happen to you where you'll be like, oh yeah, I saw this great movie the other day and it had nothing to do with sports, and they're like, oh, that surprises me that you would make time to watch something like that. And you're like, yeah, no man is an island.
I mean, it's so true. And I think, it's funny because I think most sports fans operate as sports is part of their existence in their world, but it's not all of it. And I think the same is true for us. It is also funny too that I'm the go-to for anything on college sports. So when I go pick up my kids from school, a lot of people know me in that way. And so immediately I draw a crowd of people asking me questions on sports. And sometimes I feel man, I'd like to talk about things that are not sports because I never say this, but I'm thinking this, I just did a 3-hour show this morning. We basically talked about all the time. People want me to redo my show every day. And it's I kind of do it for everybody at the same time.
You can listen. It didn't go away. It's online.
Right. But then I feel I feel like a dick for saying that. So I don't know if I can swear here, but I'm just going to do it anyways.
There are certain professions, and we are in one of them, where if you're a college professor of something that's pretty boring or people don't understand, people won't ask you much about what you do. They won't come to you because you're researching the genome. You have what job is actually probably more fascinating on many levels than ours is. It's just not as fun to explain or easy to explain. But if you're any kind of doctor, we are on the such lower level of that. But if you're any kind of doctor, if you're a criminal defense attorney or a criminal attorney, people, you've got stories. I always think about Seinfeld and Kramer and the proctologist. They got stories, man. We are certainly the proctologist of the media industry. They come to us and they've got what I want here. And that's fine. That we chose this life, but sometimes it is right after you've done your show. My wife was surprised when she moved in. She's like, "Oh, this game starts at 6, at 7 o'clock." We're like, "Yeah. It's an NBA game. Let's wait till halftime. Can we just watch one episode of something just so I can downshift,
unplug from this straight line I'm always in with sports?" Yeah. But it's funny because it's the opposite with other people. Sports is the escape and not the job for most people. And so we're just kind of in the inverse of that. And it could be a lot worse. Could be digging ditches, but
it's just a weird thing. But I do want people who are guests on this show to feel want the audience to know that this is a deep person that is not just one thing. But we're going to start.
Won't go that far, Paul, but
deeper. You won't drown in the depths of our swimming pool, but
right.
you could get up to maybe chest deep.
If you wanted to, you could, but you
Yeah.
have to try pretty hard to drown in this.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. First question, sports. Is Big 12 football well positioned for 2026 as a league?
Yes, probably not as well positioned as we thought maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago with
Mhm.
the Sorsby situation. But yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12 has, good teams at the top. There's good depth in the league. I think if you look at a 2014 playoff and, and what it might have looked like last season, you're going to be seeing a ton of teams from a Big 12 in a 2014 playoff because of the depth at the top. But I think, leagues are judged, and rightfully so, on winning in the postseason. And so far, that has not been, very good for and positive for the Big 12. So they got to figure out a way to win some of these games. And I think with what Texas Tech had, including Sorsby, you felt good about their opportunity to go in there and win some games. And now I'm not so sure about that if Sorsby's not going to be available. So I'd say, pretty good position for 2026. I'd say really good position for the long term. I think there are some teams and programs we can look at that, that their trajectories point up in terms of, being sustained at the top, being really good for a consistent period of time, which is the key in this elusive game of college football.
Yeah, and you mentioned the 2014 playoff. I am now resigned to the fact that that's happening. I don't love it. They're going to have. I'm one of the people that's going to have to get really, really sold on it. I'm fine with 12. Actually, I'm fine with 16. But I just think you get to 24, you're going to have some 8 and 4 teams in there, and there's going to be a year where there's a 7 and 5 team in, just because of the way that like parity is growing in the sport. And that's a great thing, but the problem with it is you can't just let it run wild. And I think that that's where, the first couple rounds of the playoffs, I don't think will be what they think it'll be. And I don't think the leaders of college sports have any idea how to fix things, because they're just the only way they can do it and try to get their old revenue model back is to shove more stuff in it, as opposed to fixing the revenue model now and then trying to increase everybody's money. They're trying to okay, well, we only have to give the players this much money right now. So as long as we can do that, let's stuff the money over on this other side until that blows up too.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of great points you just made there, Paul, but ultimately what we're talking about here is, a system that's continually trying to churn more money out of paying customers. And that is the TV networks, that is the, consumers. Because the cost of doing business is increasing. The cost of doing business was high before, and that was before they had to, earmark 20 million across their athletic department to pay for athletes, for student athletes. And then on top of that, you're trying to, navigate the waters from an NIL perspective with the most important, businesses that can help fund, money beyond the 20 million. I'm with you. I mean, I've resigned myself to the fact that the 2014 playoff is coming. I think, the one thing that I used to love about college football was it was so unique from the perspective of, you didn't have, a meaningless quote unquote regular season with a bunch of teams making the playoffs. It's the most unique sport in American sports because of that. And whether it was a 2-team playoff in the BCS era or the 4-team playoff, if you lost a game, in the regular season, your opportunity to play in the postseason dwindled substantially. And if you lost 2 games, it was over. And in most cases in the BCS, if you lost 1 game, it was over. And, now, there will be a higher volume of important games, but it's just like the NFL, where we used to joke when I did the Cowboys games of, is this a must win? I don't think games should be a must win unless they literally must win in order to keep their season alive. But we have this constant exercise in the NFL of judging a quote unquote must win game under the guise of it's an important game because if they don't win, they're at this state or they've got this to do. But there's so many other games that they'll have down the road that will be quote unquote must win games. So it's a long way to say the playoff system has basically been completely thrown out in terms of the importance of the regular season. Again, I understand the argument of there's a higher volume of more important games now, but I think before it was you lose a game, your season's over. I mean, you remember that was back when Florida State was good, Paul. So, I think, when you look at, I had to take a shot at Florida State. Sorry. I didn't know one of Kansas is coming.
I've done nothing but take shots at them lately.
It's true. That's a fair point.
I don't have good things to say.
But yeah, I mean, it's a totally unique playoff system that we just couldn't handle in our sports world, right? We had to have some sort of a playoff. And that's what we have now. And I think it will benefit the Big 12. I think the Big 12, has depth at the top, something we haven't seen as much over the last decade, but certainly looks to be trending up for the Big 12 in terms of having 5-6 teams. You look at the top 25 from last year, the Big 12 would have had Arizona, Iowa State, Utah, BYU, Texas Tech, and Houston in the dance last year in the 2014 playoff. Now, maybe the top 25 is voted on differently, where 24 teams get in, but the point being that like the Big 12 is benefiting right now from having strength at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. As we said earlier, you are a Chicagoan. Chicago dog, deep dish, Italian beef. Only one can survive. What's yours?
I'm going to go deep dish. I feel like that's the most, unique food that's tied directly to Chicago. I mean, people think of the hot dog and they think of Chicago or New York. People think of Italian beef. I'm not really sure what they think about it. I think most people outside Chicago aren't even sure what that means. Yeah. But Chicago style pizza means something. It's a very polarizing food item too. I mean, people love to tell you how much they hate Chicago style pizza. And it's like, great. I like all pizza. I like cheese and I like tomato sauce and I like lots of good toppings and I like New York style and Detroit style and Chicago style. Like I like it all. I like those items that go on pizza and I'm fine with that. But people love to like explode on you and tell you how terrible Chicago style pizza it is. And, I'm sure in most cases they haven't had like really good Chicago style pizza, which is why they're uninformed. But yeah, I mean, you find like a good spot, a good hole in the wall that like outside of Chicago that has a spot like that and they do it well. And it's like, man, what a place. But yeah, there's so many great spots in Chicago that have it. To me, I love Chicago style pizza. Again, I like all styles. I'm also a big fan of New York style pizza. They're totally different experiences. So yeah, that's my feeling on Chicago style pizza.
I think, and my rule for local food is each 50 miles you get outside, you lose like whatever the knowledge, like you lose like 5% of the knowledge that this is how it's really done. Unless you were just something like, if you grew up in Chicago, you lived on the South Side, you had a pizzeria there, you decided to okay, it's too cold, I'm moving to Florida, and you just knew like, I'm bringing the oven with me that has all this thing. This is how I season my oven. This is how I do this. This is my little trick that made this really good. Otherwise, I think it's just people trying to make it. And
I also think like it's almost impossible for many of these places to survive because again, Chicago style pizza is very polarizing. And so you have to have like a really strong base that likes it because there's a lot of people that don't like it. And so if you're going to do it, it feels like you got to go all in and that's expensive. So, yeah. I mean, there was a place I used to live in San Antonio that had some really good Chicago style pizza and like they went out of business. So it's like, you almost have to do like multiple. You have to do all different styles. And at that point, you're probably not going to do Chicago style well. And it's not going to be good. And then there's like,
takes
longer. Like I used to love Portillo's, but then Portillo's got bought by, private equity and then they went public and now their food is terrible. And so like, you tell people about Italian beef and if they've had Portillo's, they may like it. They may have never had it. Right. So, but now Portillo's has expanded so much and their food is just not nearly as good as it used to be. It's crazy.
No, you gotta like the next real Italian beef you have, if you've had like a chain, you need to walk into a place that has like a dingy mascot on the thing, Al's Italian Beef or Mr. Beef or whatever. Right. That's not like once you get outside of where you can drive over 55 miles an hour, you're just not going to have it. So, okay. Next one.
By the way, let me just add, I think Chicago has the best food in America. I think it's the best food city in America. And I think it's just a mix of, because there's its own style, but then they also have like just great Italian food, great, Mexican food, right? Like you can get kind of all different styles of food in Chicago that are great, but then also the Chicago style food, which is, hot dog joint or Italian beef joint or Chicago style pizza. Like New Orleans has great food, but it's because of the New Orleans level style cuisine. Right. I don't know that you're going there to get a Mexican food or other types of food. New York has great food as well, but yeah, to me, Chicago is the best food city in America.
Yeah. It's in my top 5. Okay. Top 3 coaches, Big 12 football, who need a good year in the worst way.
Well, I think Dave Aranda is number one, because if he doesn't, then he's going to be out of a job. You could argue he probably should be out of a job already. I think you probably are looking at one of the two retreads from last year with Scott Frost and Rich Rod. I'd say, are both going to lose their jobs if they don't have a good season? No, but they both had dreadful first seasons. They both have built the portal in different ways. West Virginia probably has a lot more younger players. UCF went for more of the older style. So it's kind of a cop out because I'm giving you two guys in that second spot. And then I'd say Lance Leipold, the Kansas coach, who really came out swinging in his first few years at Kansas, redefined what success could look like for a program that was completely down and out. And then they've now cratered a little bit here with back-to-back 5 and 7 seasons. 2 years ago, they came on strong at the end of the year to try to get to 6 wins and get to a bowl game and didn't. And then last year it was kind of the opposite, where they started off strong, got to 5. They were 5 and 2, and then basically finished with 5 straight losses, if my memory serves. So sort of got to the same outcome of 5 and 7 seasons, back-to-back years in different approaches. And now you're building a new stadium that's going to be finished after this season. You're going to be at half capacity this year. So I just think there's a lot of momentum riding on the future of Kansas football with a lot of investment there, and back-to-back 5 and 7 seasons, after what looked to be something built, at KU that was incredible beyond anything we could have ever imagined.
I was up there for the Houston game, as you know, the basketball game, the Big Monday game, and got a tour of the new football facility, which is unbelievable. And the thing is, I really like Lance Leipold quite a bit, and I just hope that he can get the program back on the upswing so that he, the guy who helped get this done, can enjoy all of that. Like he can coach games in that stadium, which is going to if you are one of the people who's going to get one of those end zone level, field level seats under the goalposts, it's awesome. It's amazing. Like they're going to have some views in that stadium that nobody else in the Big 12 has. And, I would like to see him experience that because he obviously did so much of the heavy lifting to get it there.
Well, look, I mean, not to put all the blame on Lance Leipold here for their last 2 seasons, because I think there's plenty of blame to go around. But yeah, I mean, I think he's not a victim of circumstance here. Like he did a really good job in building this program up. And if I point to last year, I would say there were times where he probably, played not to lose far too often. I'd like to see him become more aggressive, especially given last year you have, a 6th-year quarterback who's played within the system to not go for it in certain 4th down situations was just made no sense. I mean, against Missouri, you kept playing not to lose. You're trying to play the field position game. It was just a weird deal. It's like, just be more aggressive. Football demands it right now. And especially, again, you have a 6th-year quarterback. So, I mean, I like Lance Leipold a lot. He's a great guy, but I definitely attribute a lot of their failures last 2 years to some of his in-game decision-making.
What should be the penalty for putting ketchup on a steak?
Wow. That I judge you very harshly. I don't know. I mean, people like it.
Do what they want, but I see people, and I've been in really nice steak restaurants in my life because it is something that does bring me pure joy. It doesn't happen often because they're expensive, but when you can pull off a place that, can tell you a story about the cow, those are the kind of places I'm talking about. And
they're playing those in Texas for sure.
Yeah. And so you look over at a table and you see an adult, not a child, an adult putting ketchup on their steak. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Do you understand how much you paid for this and how hard this guy back here, who's probably a nut, by the way, in the way that he prepares food, worked to make this steak, and you're just going to drown it in ketchup, which you could have gone to any steakhouse. You got a $9 steak and put it in ketchup, and it's going to taste like ketchup, and you don't have to pay the extra $60 that you just dropped.
Well, and the reason, going back to Chicago style food for a moment, Chicagoans don't believe in putting ketchup on hot dogs. And, that's because of the sugar that really makes the taste and flavor of the hot dog not as good. So, I mean, you can make the case for the steak too. I'm just going to assume, Paul, that the person who eats their steak with ketchup also eats it well done or medium well, which to me is also, I'm very judgmental of people who don't eat their steaks medium rare, because quite frankly, there's no wrong opinion on food preferences, but there is when it comes to the temperature in which your steak is cooked. If you're worried about the, health implications of eating a raw cow, then don't eat the steak, because it is completely different from a flavor profile and just a consistency standpoint when you're eating it medium rare. So to me, I go further than that. If you're eating, ketchup on your steak, chances are it's a medium well or a well done steak, which I'm out at that alone. So like I've judged from the start of the temperature order than anything else. Yeah. Like at that point, you might as well put ketchup on it. Why not add mustard? Why not, if it's well done, you've already ruined the steak anyways.
Yeah. The only time I ever use steak sauce, other than if a place that's like a big time steak place, my brother-in-law works for Sperry's in Nashville. He's the GM, the regional manager there. And so they have a specially made steak sauce. And so if they say, hey, you got to try this, it's really good, I will try the steak sauce. But again, I'm not going to slobber it all over my steak. I'm just going to dip and try either way. But if you see me ask for steak sauce, it's because you've overcooked my steak. And I don't want to tell you like, hey, you ruined this. Like if it's at a restaurant, I have no problem sending it back. But if it's at a barbecue and somebody gives me a steak that they've, paid for themselves and invited me over, if I say like, hey, you got steak sauce, and they probably do because they clearly don't know how to cook steak, I'll be like, yeah, I just need a little A1, and that will get me through. And then I can drive home and go, I really should send them a link or something on how to do this.
I mean, I would say like, I don't know much about cooking, but like I know how to make a good steak. So I feel like if you go to a restaurant that does steak and they don't know how to make steak, it's like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
I also am judgmental of a steak restaurant, if they hand you a steak and then give you a sauce as well with it. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that. In certain places, the sauce is good.
It's totally optional. They have like, and they have the like the Bernays or all these different things that people like. Sperry's, if you ever do get to Nashville, it's fantastic. It has a salad bar still. It's great. It's pricey. It's good, but like again, so we go every Christmas so that we get to actually see my brother-in-law on Christmas because he always has to work. Wow. But it's very Nashville celebrity ridden as well. Like that's where like he's been like, hey, Chris Stapleton was in here today, or Jim Nantz or whatever. So it's where deals get done in Nashville. It's Sperry's. So
no, I know I've heard of it. Yeah.
But they have like and I do think that they maybe make their sauce because their chefs are like, look, I do not want somebody in this restaurant to hand a bottle with a sticker on it. Like I will make, if you would like a steak sauce. And so it's so good that they're like, hey, you may want to just try it. But most of the time you don't need it. But I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. You told me to try it. I'll try it, whatever, like I'm always, if you go to a restaurant and you say, what does the chef recommend? I'm that guy. I'll eat it. Like even if it's something I may not like, if he says the asparagus is really good, I'm like, well, I'll try it. I'm not a big asparagus guy, but if the chef is so proud of this, he's willing to stake his reputation on it. Let's do it. I'll try it. Let's go. Okay. Without Sorsby, is Tech still a contender?
Contender for what?
The national title, which is what they want right now. They're spending they're not spending just Big 12 championship money. That's the phase one of the money. They're spending because they want to win a national championship.
Right. So, I mean, I would say no. And that simply is because we thought they were last year and they were clearly a better quarterback away from it. I mean, I think it's obvious. I was in the building for the Orange Bowl that if they had gotten anything resembling average quarterback play, it probably would have been a better outcome. And I mean, their defense was dominating in that game. And yet despite that, their offense could not consistently hold the ball or move the ball. So, I mean, to me, could they be a contender? Sure. I need to know what's going on with Sorsby, one. And then two, what does Will Hammond look like? Right. Because what we saw last year, there was some good and some bad. They definitely recruited over him to a degree because of the injury with Sorsby, but how much faith and confidence do they have in him? And then, I mean, there is the Sorsby piece with Kessler that I'm pretty confident that Sorsby will be able to play at some point this year, but we don't know it. So I think based on what we know today, I would say no. Now, are they contenders to win the Big 12? Absolutely. But again, like they were an elite defense last year. They were a historically great defense last year. And yet despite that, didn't really even compete through much of that Orange Bowl, especially in the second half. So, clearly for them to be take that next step and be legitimate national championship contenders, they're going to need to have better quarterback play and be more consistent on offense.
And we, I just get the feeling we're going to find out at the 11th hour about Sorsby. Like, it's just going to be one of those things this isn't going to get resolved quickly because there's layers to this issue that maybe don't exist for a guy like Jake Retzlaff. He obviously violated the BYU honor code, dismissed from the team. There's a simpler answer to that. This is such a layered, there's strata to it before you get down to it. It's because I don't think the NCAA wants you to just be like, well, there weren't big bets and they, he wasn't, like they don't want to get caught in the nuance of it. They need, and I do think the sports world needs a black and white answer on this. Like what is acceptable and what is not, and what is the acceptable punishment, and how does a player come back from this or not if they have been caught doing this? Like, is what Brendan Sorsby going into a program, is that enough? Or, because that's going to be the question for the NFL. Like, do they suspend him when he goes there? And, there's all these questions that need to get answered. And I just think it's going to be one of those things that we probably find out about in late July, early August. And maybe not even right away. They might be starting practice and going, all right, Will, how's that knee, buddy? How's that knee? Feeling good? Because I think that's where this has to go.
Well, yeah, I think the NCAA knows who's on the other side. They know Kessler. They know the history there. They've taken a lot of L's. And so they're trying to approach this without losing, but they've lost a bunch to Kessler. And, so we'll see. This is, like you said, there's layers to this. There's the timeline for the NCAA. There's his release, from the treatment facility that he's at. Like, there's so many aspects to this that are really interesting and could take time. And I think in some ways a delay is exactly warranted, because whatever delays incurred, it's about getting to the season. And, if they haven't made a decision by the time the season starts, you can play. If you get an injunction that's delays this, you can play. Like, all these things might play into it.
Is Bigfoot real?
No, definitely not. Aliens are real. Bigfoot is definitely not real.
I would have felt we would have found a dead Sasquatch by now. Like, somebody on a hike would have found a dead Sasquatch. Maybe
it was one thing before, like, the smartphone era, to have like a crazy camcorder video, but like, you're telling me in this era where like everybody's got a phone attached to their hip and everybody's filming everything, that
they have 4K trail cameras for your deer lease. So you can't tell me that somebody has not gotten a 4K video of a, like, especially as many people are looking for him.
Yeah, no, there are plenty of creatures that have never been identified by humans, but they live in remote places that people won't go very often.
Like the ocean.
Definitely aliens, 100% aliens, but no Bigfoot.
Yeah, no, I believe, I don't know if they're little green men or they've been like, but I do believe that, we've done this whole humanoid thing more than once as a universe.
The universe is constantly expanding.
Yeah.
It would be impossible for there not to be life elsewhere.
Unless this was just such a bad idea that they're like, no, we'll just wait this one out. We'll just wait this one out. And then when it's over, it's over. It turns out, bad idea. We shouldn't have done it, but nope. Some days I feel like that. Some days I feel like that. Others I don't. Okay. This is in the middle. This is the in the middle question, but I wanted your opinion. Why will the NBA not rig the draft for the Bulls? They've done it for the Mavericks. They've done it for the Cavs. They've done it for a lot of teams. Now, again, that's a conspiracy theory about rigging the draft lottery, but it's been 28 years since the Bulls have been truly relevant. Truly relevant. And this is, if you don't want the Mavericks to like up and have a reason to move to Vegas, which again was never going to happen, but like, if you're going to bail them out, like, can you bail Jerry Reinsdorf out of like 30 years of bad decisions?
Look, you could argue that the Bulls did get the lottery rigged in their favor years ago with Derrick Rose. They had a very low chance of getting it. some years I believe it's rigged and some years I don't. I just don't think in the era of Tim Duncan that the NBA would think that rigging the draft for Tim Duncan to go to the Spurs over the Boston Celtics makes any sense whatsoever in terms of the audience.
Yeah.
So like that one for me always stands up, and then they'd rig it again for the Spurs to get Victor Wembanyama. Like that, why would they want one of the worst markets? With apologies to a great city that I lived in, but like in terms of the markets in this, that were available, like that's the one they wanted. That doesn't make any sense to me. So, I ultimately I do think last year it was rigged for the Mavs. Look, the Bulls getting the 4th pick was they had a 5% chance to get the 4th pick. The 4th pick in this draft is pretty substantial. So I'm not that upset about it.
No, I wouldn't be either. And this is a great draft to have the 4th pick in. There's some drafts where you're like 4, we might as well just go home. If we didn't get 1, that's it. We're just going to go home. But this is a draft where if you have maybe all the way down to like 14, you're going to get a really good player.
But the Bulls are a horribly run organization. Michael Reinsdorf, who's running it now for his dad, Jerry, does. I mean, they're it's really incredible. Michael Jordan put that franchise and brand on third base, and they still haven't scored yet because they just have completely screwed up on every way in rebuilding multiple times with coaches, with general managers. I mean, they've just made every wrong decision.
I still don't understand why in all these times LeBron has moved around, they haven't been like, look, I mean, we've got one GOAT. Let's go get the other one and see if we can win one with him. You let him go to Miami? What? Like, I get it. Like he lived in Ohio. He wanted to go to South Beach. That's great. Went back to Ohio. I was like, yeah, it's cold. I'm going to go out west. But you could have, I just think, I don't know. To me, that was their opportunity to maybe like cut the line a little bit, and they didn't. And because there's only 2 ways to cut the line is winning, getting Wemby and guys like that, or when free agency comes, you've set up your stuff so well that you're like, you know what? We can get anybody. We can get anybody. We set this up. We're going to make a play because we're in Chicago. For God's sake.
I would say either, you skip the line by getting Wemby, you're an all-time great player, or you're the Lakers.
Yeah. Well, the whole league is rigged so they don't never have to suffer too long. You'll never, the trades that they're allowed to make, that it's just the Pau Gasol trade. I will never, ever get over it, ever in my life.
I mean, every one of them, Luka, Kareem, the Gasol. I mean, just whenever they need it, they get one of the all-time great superstars in their team, Hall of Famer. Of course, it makes sense.
All right. Okay. What is the dream bourbon that you have not tried?
The 15-year Pappy Van Winkle.
Oh, I was on a cruise recently, and they had a bottle of it. And
cheap.
No, I was like, just one. I was like, you know what? I'm on vacation. It's like, it was the cost of like an entire excursion. I was like, no.
One drink.
For one drink. For that, it just, you look at it and it's, yeah.
Well, and if it's from the original juice, the Stitzer Weller distillery, I mean, that's the one that's the most elusive. And I'm not even sure if there are actually bottles left that have it. So yeah, that would be the elusive one. And as you know, as a bourbon drinker yourself, that like the chase of bourbon is about finding the chase for the endless bottle. And every year, wherever the barrel is set up in the rick house, like those all impact the air, all that impacts what the flavor is going to be for that bourbon.
Okay. Bill Self's last ride, yes or no? And is this team set up to send him out the way that every Kansas fan would want him to?
I'll say yes, but I reserve the right to say no in the future based on information that becomes available. Look, I think this team right now is way better than last year's team, but I wouldn't have known that a year ago because we didn't really know what the Darren Peterson ride was going to look like. What I'll say about Tyron Stokes, who's the incoming #1 player for Kansas this year, is he's got a dog in him that Darren Peterson didn't have. And so I think there's elements of him that are so dissimilar from Darren Peterson that Kansas fans are just going to love. Like Kansas fans want somebody to love. They want somebody to embrace. And Peterson was not that guy. And Melvin Council was until he wasn't, because he and Trey White and many of these other guys from last year flamed out. But Stokes is going to be that guy. Like he's going to be emotional. He's going to be fun. He's going to really enjoy Allen Fieldhouse. And yeah, I mean, I just think this team feels like it has more upside than previous teams. But the reality is, so much of the failures of Kansas within recent history, really post the 2022 national championship, are schematic related, and it's not being a high volume 3-point shooting team, not having enough, inside interior to be a consistent team. They've been in the 50s and mid 50s in Ken Palm offensive efficiency for quite some time now. So, that's a number that has to change. They've been elite defensively, but have been, average to below average at best on offense. And that's not good enough to win a national championship, which is obviously the expectations in Lawrence.
Yeah. The only negative thing I've seen written about Stokes is that he is very bold. Like, he gets into it with his AEU coach. Jamal Crawford is the coach. And I saw a lot of people going, hey, this is a big question for Kansas. And I was like, look, of all the coaches on planet Earth that he's going to go play for, just try that with Bill and see how well it goes for you. Like, and the reason that I think there's only like 4 or 5 guys that really can ride the system well of being a hard ass, but also being loved by the players for the most part. 2 years ago, that team notwithstanding that had some real cancers on it, but Bill Self knows how, like, he knows exactly, he and Kelvin Sampson know exactly when to push the button of, you will not mess with me, or, you know what, I'm going to, you need a hug. Come on, let's talk this out. They know exactly when. They're masters of it. So of all the coaches you could have gone to, that's those are some of the best ones, because they know exactly, like, oh yeah, okay, you can have attitude and you can think you're this, but like Bill Self can turn around and be like, you're in Allen Fieldhouse here. If you'd like to take a walk up the stairs, I can show you there was a guy who scored 100 points in a game in the NBA that played here. They invented this, like, the guy who invented the sport came here. Like, this is, you're not any different than anybody else. By the way, see those banners up there? Yeah, 3 of those are mine. Right. Let's be real here.
No, I mean, and look, that was my issue with Peterson last year, was it felt like at times he's felt like he was bigger than the program. And it's like, this is Kansas basketball, man. Like, you could have gone a bunch of other places and that would have been the case. But like, yeah, this is a program that is far bigger than you, far bigger than your impact. And, I mean, look, it looks like he's going to end up being the number 2 pick and could even slide further than that, all based on the season that he just had. So nobody's, been worse off because of that season, more so than Darren Peterson himself.
Okay. Couple more questions for you. What popular musical act do you not get the hype for?
I'll say Taylor Swift. And I say that as somebody that's listened to a ton of her music. I think she's got one album that's really good. I think every other album sounds the same. I do get the hype to a degree in terms of like connecting with women and women internalizing a lot of that, and it reflecting some of them and their growth. I understand that part of it, but like, just the music is so singularly similar across the board. Like, everything sounds the same to me, every single song, with the exception of that one album that was not even produced by her. And it was a really good album with lots of good tunes, but again, completely dissimilar from the rest of the catalog.
Yeah. I respect her as a business hustler more than, like, I almost think we should put her on the cabinet and like, hey, solve the economy, because holy cow. Like, I mean, if you can convince people like, hey, I saw you in Detroit and then I flew to friggin' Japan to see you again. Like, that's, all right. Like, I can't critique you, but I do, like, I get the thing on the music. Like, there's, she's got some bangers out there, but then there's a lot of like, if you love her, then you're going to love it. If you don't, you're going to be like, okay, well, not bad, but it's just not my thing. Like, that's, I think, the thing that a lot of people don't get. Like, there's Swifties and there's people like, not my thing, but she's great. But go on. I mean, it's not, it's all, in the eye of the beholder. Okay. Ari Temkin, fix college sports for us in 3 minutes or less.
Collective bargaining. How long did that take?
There you go. And the thing is, they should do that. I think they should do that first. That's the thing, that before we expand the playoff and before we shove 76 teams into the NCAA basketball tournaments, which I think is a horrible, horrible idea that no fan wants. No fan. If you sat in an NCAA tournament game, I told Brett Yormark this a couple years ago, we had him on. I said, if you went, and it was at the combine, the football combine, and I said, if you left and went here, because he was going over to whatever regional was in Dallas, if you went over there and you walk to every seat and you just had a guy taking notes, do you want 76 teams in here? It would be like 99-1. Like you would get like one guy who's just like basketball, and then the rest would be like, no, I really like this. This is my favorite thing of the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the first step towards getting any sort of rules across the board. I mean, this isn't rocket science here. The NCAA has been labeled through the Supreme Court as a monopoly, and so therefore, anytime they try to implement rules, they get sued and lose. So, like the Major League Baseball or the NFL or the NBA, they need to collectively bargain with the athletes themselves, and it's not going to be easy, but that's the best path towards creating rules and uniformity across the board in college sports. But they don't want to deem them athletes, or they don't want to deem them employees, and because of that, they can't collectively bargain. But it's the only savior. Like if people are waiting for the government or anybody, Senate to save them, like no, like the only way you're going to get saved and you're going to have some semblance of consistency across the board is through collective bargaining. That's the only way you're going to do it. And the sooner they get there, the sooner we'll all have a resolution on it.
Yeah, they can't keep trying to turn back the clock. They've got to move forward. They have to embrace the reality of what they are, do that, and then everything else will be way easier than it is right now. Way easier, and still not easy, but easier than they're making it, trying to get Congress to help them turn back the clock too. Okay, last thing, and this is very important, Ari. It's 2 a.m. You are hungry. You maybe have had 4 to 7 bourbons. What is your go-to fast food order?
Like go to spot or go to order?
Like what's your the spot and order? Like I am in the Uber, and while I'm in the Uber, I'm door dashing so that my junk food is at the door when I get back.
I mean, I really like a Big Mac if I'm going to go like full on fast food. I haven't had one of those in a long time, but I would say if I've just absolutely got to have something and fast food's my only option, I would say a Big Mac for sure.
Yeah, which is why, and here, look, you live in Dallas now, and you were in San Antonio, and you grew up in Chicago, which is why cities like that are so great, because you may not have to go to the fast food option. There's probably a late night spot that serves something. Like in Chicago, you'd be like, you know what? There's a deep dish place that's like right there. I've already called them, if you would just add a stop real quick, and I'll roll down the window and go, Ari, and they'll be, here you go.
No, you're exactly right. Most things where I live are closed at that period of time. So, if I'm hungry that late, I've done some poor planning.
Yeah, no, that's true. Like the only time it happens to me anymore is if I'm like on vacation, we've been out doing things, and I've had a couple of pops, and I'm like, you know what? Like a burrito sounds amazing right now. I'll tell you the last time I did it, and I can't remember the last time before that, but when we were in Lawrence, like trying to get it, like if you don't go there, like if you're not there all the time. So my brother-in-law and my wife want to get there early and kind of just experience the wave of people coming in, and the band start playing and all these things. So if that's Big Monday at 8:30, that means that we're in that building at 6 o'clock. Well, we didn't really eat dinner. And then, once the game starts, I was kind of not really focused on, it was such an intense game. I was like, I could go get a hot dog, but like, that's when something amazing is going to happen. And I'm here to see this cool game. So I'm not going to go get a hot dog. And so we were all starving. We're like, all right, well, there's a Taco Bell near the hotel in Kansas City. That's what we're going to do.
Well, I mean, the wheel pizza, that's what it's made for. That was the whole thing, was after games or late at night. You go to the wheel, you go to the Hawk, you go to the Bull.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say
45-minute drive back to KC eliminated any Lawrence stuff, but yeah. So anyway, because you don't stay in Lawrence if you're not going to be there for more than a day. So Ari Temkin, Big 12 Radio, you're off the hot seat, buddy. Thank you so much. This has been informative. Please listen to Ari. If you're a Big 12 fan, if you're not a Big 12 fan, you're just a college sports fan, and you want to learn more about the Big 12, no better place to go than Ari Temkin on Big 12 Radio on TuneIn. They're pretty much everywhere the Big 12 goes. So he is on the scene. And please like and subscribe to this new channel, 365 Sports Extras. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.